How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. Let's do this. How are you?
I'm old and tired. How are you?
I'm young and tired.
So your life kind of blew up after that speech of yours went viral.
Yes, it did. That is why I must discuss a very public part of my identity. This characteristic has probably become the first thing you think of when you think of me as a human being. As you know, I have curly hair. I had been class president all 4 years, and I was also our school's first openly gay class president. And so it was going to be originally this really beautiful story about how we had all grown and developed and shared. And then in the final year, we receive disgusting legislation that threatens the public schooling experience I had enjoyed for 12 years. And so, of course, my speech was going to change to become about that. But I hadn't told anyone that. I hadn't made any indication of that. I was not dumb.
You didn't need to.
Still, my principal called me in. He let me know that this was a celebration. It was a time for families to come together and to enjoy themselves. And me speaking about my identity and activism would cause disrupt and ruin the celebration. The reason why I didn't go full guns blazing and say gay, and the reason I chose to thread the needle with the metaphor was because there were people in the room who truly hated me, who truly wanted me to die. They were not going to listen to my gay speech. The second I began, would have turned away. And I really wanted to somehow just articulate how ridiculous the law was. I felt it was important to rest on a metaphor that solidified, at least in that room, that my queerness is a part of me. It is a human characteristic. It is, in my eyes, biological, and it is not something you can take or remove or pick or pluck.
You were kind of channeling Harvey. I wish you could have met Harvey. He would have loved you. But he had such a knack for connecting with all different kinds of people. And part of it was very deliberate, you know. And back then, so often he would be in a room full of people who had never encountered an openly gay person, period. And he would begin with a little self-deprecating humor, and then, you know, they would relax a little bit. But he was always talking about the things that we have in common as opposed to the things that are different between us. So what you did in your speech was you kind of disarmed people. So I thought it was brilliant. I think you did it exactly right.
Thank you.
When I was coming out, when I was understanding my sexuality and looking at the world around me, the levels of violence against us were horrific and nonstop. There were no such things as safe spaces anywhere. Even like popular gay clubs and such, all of these were dangerous places. One of the scariest things that happened to me was when I came out publicly as HIV positive on a 60 Minutes broadcast. And I was living in Sacramento, working in the legislature. It was back in the day when we had these things called phone books, and there was the white pages that had your name.
I've thought about
and
this.
address.
Oh my goodness, I could
and
not.
Phone number listed, and I started getting these early morning death threats, 5 o'clock, and I'm not a morning person.
No, I'm not
either.
a morning person.
And just like, okay, faggot, we're going to kill you. And I said to my friends, what do I do with this? They say they're going to kill me, and you know, well, don't call the cops. They might be the ones calling. And somebody said, well, get a gun. I don't know how to shoot a gun. But it happened. They got me. And a bunch of skinheads jumped me and beat me to a pulp and stabbed me and left me to die. And, you know, that took really years to get over. And, you know, I was there when Harvey was shot. I walked in shortly after. I found his body. So for me, like the potential for horrendous violence is never, ever far from my mind. And that's why it's so important for younger activists and all of us to like have boundaries, have those friends that aren't doing the same work to go back to cook you dinner and calm you down and rub your back. We need you to continue the struggle through all these defeats, personal and public. So what do you think my generation maybe doesn't get about your generation and would benefit from understanding more clearly?
I think when we look at Gen Z activism, we think about social media. Right now, we are seeing young people from across the country be attacked by their legislators more and more. And these young people are also more informed about these attacks than they've ever been in history because of our phones. Social media is the only place where young people know more and can do more and have access to more things. And so that's where we're finding young people engage with their activism. But when we're talking about creating sustainable social justice movements, social media is not the space to do that. The vast majority of campaigns that are started online don't receive any engagement at all after 2 weeks. And then after it stops trending and no one's looking at it anymore, the movement dies. So I founded the C Alliance in 2019.
And what is C Alliance?
C Alliance is Social Equity Through Education Alliance. It's a group of 2,000 student organizers from across the country, primarily in Florida, working on school board elections, working to register voters, working on community disruptive actions. This year, we did Walk Out to Learn, which was our largest campaign. In 30 days, we hit 830 million press impressions, which was absolutely ridiculous. And we got to tell a really powerful story about everything going on with the Don't Say Gay law, and it's been a continuation of our fight that happened last year. Social media isn't where young people necessarily want to be doing their activism. It is the only place for them to do their activism. And if we want to see genuine community work be done, we must begin supporting in and investing youth-directed activism work, and that's what we've been doing.
We're having this conversation at a kind of interesting moment in history. There certainly is an aggressive and well-organized campaign attacking us right now. And
yeah.
I've seen recently, I think in Florida, that some of the people who organize the annual Pride celebrations have actually started canceling their events. That kind of freaks me out. It's like, why are we canceling them? I think we should be doing more of them.
Yes.
I mean, maybe people should come from other states and go to Florida.
It's a totally backwards reaction. The second we saw DeSantis win and the state become more conservative, we all immediately denounced it as a lost cause. Everyone started talking about, oh, Florida's terrible, Florida is dead. Progressives have begun to leave Florida, conservatives begun to go to Florida, and we've really just accepted that Florida is a red state. But conservatives have only been registering more voters in Florida than progressives for 3 years. And so we have to double down. We have to reaffirm that Florida is a diverse, accepting, vibrant community full of places like St. Pete and Miami where these celebrations are going to continue to survive, but we're not. And that's the problem. We are allowing fear to win, which is ridiculous.
Well, I very much agree with you on that. I work for a labor union called Unite Here. We represent hospitality workers, including a huge number of workers in Orlando, Disney World. And we're all about registering new voters. People should never give up on any particular location. We got to keep the work going.
I don't believe that the moral arc always bends towards justice. I believe that we have always, throughout history, forced it to, and so we see that happening. But I absolutely believe that there is an opportunity for, in this lifetime, this democracy to die and for all of our human rights to be taken away from us. Because also, if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, then it's not going to happen. That's the exciting part. If we are able to secure our human rights within this generation, I authentically believe that as we have this progress coming up through the younger generations, there won't be an opportunity to again.
I disagree with that.
Push it.
I absolutely disagree with that.
Why?
I think that every victory is potentially impermanent, that every generation has to be vigilant. Every gain can be undone. I've seen it in my life. I see it reading history. I'm skeptical of the notion that the arc is always bending towards justice. I would like to believe it, but I know that it won't happen if we don't every generation continue and continue and continue. So I'm glad to see young people rising up and being angry and organizing and getting smart and pushing it.
What was the first victory that you were a part of?
I would say the first major victory that I got to be part of was defeating the Briggs Initiative, Proposition 6, on the California ballot in November of 1978. They wanted to create a new law that would make it illegal for the people we now call LGBTQ and their allies to work in any capacity in any public school district. All the polling indicated that it would pass overwhelmingly, 1978, But we won, and it was amazing. And it was a very important lesson because it wasn't just about coming out and posting, here's my identity and here are my pronouns on social media. It was about going out to the Central Valley and Orange County and knocking on doors and saying, I'm one of those people. So I think one thing that I would encourage younger people to do who as you say, want to lead and want to be part of the struggle, is to really try to identify what parts of the work bring them joy.
Yeah.
You know, I've been doing this for over a half century, and I love the work. There's days, I have bad days, but mostly, consistently, I'm excited by the work. It brings me joy. It connects me to the most amazing people. And yeah, we have a lot of defeats, but every now and then we have the most extraordinary victories that transform the lives of thousands, millions of ordinary people. So now that I'm, contemplating the end of my life coming relatively soon, I've had a bad year of health issues. I've had to reflect about it a bit, and I think clearly that creating the AIDS Memorial Quilt was the greatest achievement of my life.
We're here to remember the loved ones that we've lost. And whenever we display the quilt, we dedicate it to the memory of those who have gone. But we are also here for the living.
Cleve Jones is fighting the AIDS epidemic the only way he knows how, with his skills in bringing people together. As founder of the Names Project, he's the creator of the AIDS Quilt, a gigantic tapestry of 3-by-5-foot panels, each of which memorializes a life lost to AIDS.
It came at a terrible time when I felt that I and everyone I loved was going to die and be forgotten. Of my circle of friends, believe me, I was the least interesting. Like, my friends were extraordinary people in many different fields. Almost everyone I knew was dead by 1985. My grandmothers loved me. My grandmothers, I think both, would have given their lives to save mine if that was possible. But my grandmothers weren't going to put on Doc Marten boots and black leather bomber jackets and storm the NIH. There needed to be a place for them in the movement. So the quilt was beautiful and poignant and a great media tool for sure. It was designed to be laid on the ground on the mall to shame the government. It was a weapon. It wasn't a passive memorial. It was like, see the consequences of your inaction. See the consequences of your failure. But it was also an entry point. And thousands and tens of thousands of people participated in creating it. Hundreds of thousands of people volunteered to put on these huge displays all around the world. And tens of millions of people visited these massive quilt displays. And from there, found that entry point into the movement and went back to their communities to lobby for additional funding for research and care and treatment. So I think that worked. And at any opportunity in a conversation with a younger person, I also say, I want you to know that everybody told me they thought that was the stupidest thing they'd ever heard of. So when you are confronted with something and you know in your heart that you have to fight back and some old fart tells you that won't work or your idea totally sucks, just tell them to fuck off and do it anyway.
I will. You don't need to hear it from me, and you've heard it so much, but that's just, it was a win.
I don't really think you need any particular advice from me, but I hope that you will protect yourself and always find joy and look for those moments when you're doing the work and you haven't slept and you've probably had too much coffee and you really need to pee, but you're happy and you're thinking, yeah, I could do this forever. And pay attention to those moments and let them kind of guide you and move you forward.
I will try. Thank you.